All right, Chris, roughly about a week into free agency, roughly. I'm not gonna lie, Dan Morgan's been doing some wheeling and dealing. I know some moves that we may not like, maybe didn't get as much with Brian Burns, but not gonna lie, the trade for Diontae Johnson, pretty nice.
I think he's done a marvelous job given the hand that he's been given. So let's talk about it. Let's wrap it all up.
Let's get this sucker started.
The state of North Carolina covers 53,000 square miles. It is the habitat of the feared Carolina Panthers. Get dialed in, Panthers fans, for an in-depth look at your team, exclusive interviews, locker room insight. Let's huddle up for Panthers Playbook. Here are your hosts, Dennis Cox and Chris Lea.
Welcome back to another episode of Panthers Playbook. That is Chris Lea. Dennis Cox here with you as well. Before we get into all the free agency deals and signings and stuff the Carolina Panthers have made and could potentially make, looking at you, Mike Williams, but that could potentially happen. Make sure you leave your comments and thoughts in the comment section down below. And also make sure you hit that like button, smash that thing, and also make sure you subscribe because throughout the offseason, leading up until the 2024 year, Chris and I are going to have episodes of Panthers Playbook for you, whether here on 99.9 The Fans YouTube page or on your favorite podcast platform. Make sure, again, that you subscribe as well so you don't miss anything that we put out there. But Chris, again, roughly about a week into free agency, the legal tampering period, then the actual signings, there's been some wheeling and dealing. We had an episode last week when Brian Burns got traded, but there's been some other deals, and it seems like, especially with the signings of guys like offensive lineman Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis, like big contracts, the trade to get Diontae Johnson, seems like they're really focusing on like really beefing up the offense, if that makes sense.
This was the first time that in a while that I felt like there was an actual plan and that they're following the actual plan. Like you could see the pieces kind of fall in for the Carolina Panthers because, for a while there, that was one of the criticisms about the Matt Rule era. It felt like he had decent drafts, at least for players that fit him and what he wanted to do. Which is why a lot of those guys aren't on the team now because they're not, Matt Rule players. But like he had guys that fit what he wanted to do, but it didn't feel like there was an actual plan in place. It just felt like it was just a grab bag. And last year, it felt like David Tepper was basically coming up with and running a golden corral. It was like, hey, we need a chocolate fountain. We need fried chicken over here. We need beef tips over there. We need pizza right here. We need all the stuff.
And
this year, it feels like it's just a regular fine dining Southern restaurant. We know the few ingredients that we are going to need, and we're going to stick to what we do best, and we're going to build on that. And it feels like there's a real plan in place right now, which does that equal 10 wins or playoffs? No, it doesn't.
Not yet.
However, it feels like that this team and this franchise is starting to go on its way up.
I agree with you on that. I think like you said, there's a plan in place, and we've seen by the moves based on this offseason, the massive signing for Robert Hunt, the big $100 million contract over 5 years for him, the contract given out to Damian Lewis, 4 years, $53 million, where 26 or so is guaranteed. 2 big offensive linemen, guards, interior. It's like, okay, what's the big problem from last year? Protecting Bryce Young. Okay, let's solidify, let's protect him. Oh, you know what else he needs? He needs a number one option at wide receiver. So we're going to move Diontae Jackson, a defensive back that we were planning on cutting anyway, move him in a 6th-round pick over to Pittsburgh to get Diontae Johnson and a 7th. So we actually, our total number of draft picks doesn't change for the upcoming year. Oh, and we ended up getting rid of a guy we're going to get rid of anyway, and we also got at least a top 2 wide receiver coming in. That's a damn good move. That's a damn good move.
Great move.
Morgan. Now, a lot of people, we were even critical about what they got or the lack of return they got back for Brian Burns, but you know what? That's the deal. That's what happened. That's what the market dictated. Okay, what are you going to do moving forward with that 39th overall pick that you got from the New York Giants? What are you doing? But again, a lot of offensive signings right now. Brian Burns is gone. Frankie Luvu got himself a heck of a contract with the Washington Commanders. I know the Panthers offered him. Commanders offered more. He took more. Don't blame him. They cut Von Bell. Obviously, they traded away Diontae Jackson. But it seems like all these moves are right now built to build around Bryce Young. Like, that's the plan. We're going to build around Bryce Young first. We'll take care of the defense at a later time.
And on the defensive side, it's to make Ejiro Evero happy, and that was one of the questions that we had last week after, a lot of his players that he was working with that were really good were gone. But let's focus on offense right now. And you mentioned it. One of the biggest criticisms that we had of Bryce Young's game wasn't really because of Bryce Young; it was because of his wide receivers. His receivers didn't get open, and now you have one of the guys who in the NFL who probably is one of the best at getting open, probably top 5 at getting open. And
he's
Diontae,
up there. He's not top 5, but he can get open.
I didn't say top 5 receiver. Getting at top 5 at getting open. Diontae Johnson. And we'll see how that ends up working out and how their relationship starts growing and everything like that. And also how that helps out on the other end, Adam Thielen. Right? Because Adam Thielen had a really good year as basically the number 1 receiver. What if they bring in another good receiver and Adam Thielen just has to worry about being a number 3? And like what we thought all along, like we thought he was going to be good for, be the really good number option. 3 receiver, third option is what I was trying to say. And see how far that could take you as the Carolina Panthers. And then you mentioned Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt. And typically you don't see a lot of those big deals for guards really like equal wins for teams. But when we notice a lot of the pressure coming from the inside from the Carolina Panthers and like Bryce Young can't step up in the pocket. I thought it was interesting. Some people were giving criticism to Bryce Young like, well, why doesn't he step up in the pocket? Because the pressure's coming from up front.
He can't.
It's literally coming from up front. He can't step up in the pocket. Well, why does he do? Like, bro, he's running for his life. Like, what are we talking about here? So now I think this year is going to be the real, critical year for Bryce Young as far as like, what do you have? Because especially if your line holds up, like, we're going to have the reports are that Austin Corbett's going to slide to center, and you're going to have Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt on either side of him, plus with Taylor Moton and Ike Ekwonu. And then we don't know what Josh Nijman, how he's going to fit in the team, but it looks like he's a swing tackle. So if Moton or if Ike is hurt, or if he just happens to beat one of them out, he could be there as well. Then for Bryce Young, like you don't have a lot of excuses for anything. So I still think that maybe in the draft you could go after a tight end. Maybe another big body receiver, Xavier Legette. I would love to see him there with the Carolina Panthers. Or if Mike Williams ends up coming, people on the internet have been saying like, hey, Dan Canales has a good track record of big body guys named Mike as receiver.
Mike Evans. Yes.
So we'll see what it ends up happening. But like, and I'm okay with the running back core as it is right now. This Panthers offense could be a little bit more improved. Bryce Young could be a little bit more improved just simply by giving him time.
Yeah, giving him time to work with. But also I think there's just having some level of continuity this offseason. I think that's the biggest thing is that when Frank Reich was hired last year, he didn't know who his starting quarterback was. He didn't. So when they're talking about that all-star staff that they put together, they didn't know who they were putting together an actual offense for. Right? Even with free agent signings and things like that, they didn't know who actually they were building for until they actually drafted Bryce Young. Even though they might have had an inkling what they were going to do, they still didn't actually know. But now when Dave Canales comes in, he actually knows, all right, I know I have Bryce. I know who these other guys are going to be. I know who I'm signing to build around him. Yeah. So he can tailor his offense and cater the offense directly for Bryce Young. Yeah. So hopefully things will turn around. If Bryce is getting the protection and he's still not doing the job, well, then guess what? That's on Bryce. That's 100% on Bryce, and we can be critical of him for that. But seems like all the moves they're making right now, at least the biggest moves, are on the offensive side of the ball. But when we look on defense, yeah, they've signed guys like Ashawn Robinson. They got DJ Wanham. They've also signed Jordan Fuller as a safety. They've also got Josie Jewell, linebacker. Most of these contracts for these guys are like 1 and 2 year deals. I know Josie Jewell was actually a 3-year deal. Like Dane Jackson is just a 2-year contract. DJ Wanham, just a 2-year deal. Kalavin Chasen, just a 1-year deal. So Jordan Fuller, just a 1-year deal. It seems like they're almost like, hey, you know what, Evero, we're going to put some stopgaps with some guys that you know, but otherwise, all of our resources and attention are on offense. But defense, I don't know. I expect a big step down based off of guys lost and who they're replacing with.
You know what? I don't mind the moves on defense. I think we said this before we started recording. The hardest job for a person on that defense to replace the person that was before them is going to be for DJ Wanham, right? Like I feel like he's going to come in and do a decent job, but it's going to be very tough to replace what Brian Burns is and who Brian Burns was to that defense and that team for the last few years. I think it's kind of clear what they're looking at on defense. Defense is going to be a longer kind of a project than what offense is. Partly because, like, if Ejiro Evero does end up having a really good season, he's probably gone for a head coaching job after this. So, like, do you want to sign his type of players for these very long contracts? It'll be harder to move off of. Maybe you're going to have these easier contracts to move off of if you have bring in a different defensive coordinator who wants to put back into 4-3, or just, whatever, a different scheme, a different type of player in mind. So that's kind of how I'm looking at the defense. But I feel like there's still enough there, and I feel like there's still enough talent that's being brought in that the defense can still be decent. I expect still a top 15 defense. I don't expect a top 5 defense like it was last year, but I expect at least a top 15, a defense that can at least keep you into games. And that's really what I'm looking at right now. Keep us in the games and stop the run. And I feel like they've kind of sort of addressed that part of it. And now you're going to have guys like Kalavin Chasen, and Josie Jewell, who basically on prove it. Well, Kalavin mostly on a prove it deal.
Yeah.
You were supposed to be this. You haven't been that for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if you feel like you can still be that, come on the other side of DJ Wanham and help him out and rushing the quarterback. And let's see what you do.
I don't know what the obsession is by the Carolina Panthers of taking on former first-round draft picks by the Jacksonville Jaguars, like C.J. Henderson and now Chasen. But like I said, it's a prove-it deal for Chasen. Now, DJ Wanham, for me, that's the guy I wish was opposite of Brian Burns, because DJ Wanham had 8 sacks last season, but he was playing opposite of Danielle Hunter, who was one of the top edge rushers in the entire NFL, one of the leading sack guys in the NFL last season in Minnesota. I was like, I wish DJ Wanham was the guy that was brought in to be opposite of Brian Burns, but now, like you said, he has to actually replace him, fill that position. You brought up a great point. I think they're anticipating Evero not being there past maybe even this season, because he's been floated around with head coaching opportunities. He's been interviewed at a bunch of different places.
Hot name.
He's on the final year of his contract with the Panthers as well. So there's my guess, they're probably thinking Evero's gone after this upcoming year. Like you said, we're not going to put a whole lot of resources into this upcoming season on defense. And like you said, signing long-term deals with some of his guys, air quotes there, that makes perfect sense to me. Hey, you know what? We know that Canales is going to be the head coach and he's going to be running the offense. All right, let's get his guys in here. Let's build that up long-term. And then once we actually do figure out who the defensive coordinator is going to be long-term, then we can build those guys around there. That's a really great point. I was thinking that just as you mentioned it. I think that's probably the reason why we're seeing the deals that we're going to get.
Yeah.
Again, I expect to step down on defense this season because you lost Frankie Luvu, you lost Brian Burns. Obviously, you cut Von Bell, so you've lost some major pieces. Yeah, you've plugged in some guys who are good, but not as good as some of those guys that you lost. Hopefully, even with the guys that are brought in, there's still got to be a massive improvement on red zone defense. I still would like to see them get to the quarterback a little bit more often than they did last season in terms of sack percentage. They were one of the lowest in the NFL when it comes to that. And also defensively last season, they only had 1 strip sack, and it was on the 3rd play of the first game of the season. I want to see more of those big type splash plays from the defense. I thought there was a lack of those last year, but who knows what we'll see. As long as they keep the game close and the offense has a chance, that's all you can ask for.
Well, here's the thing about the defense. I kind of think that, like, even if the Carolina Panthers did win a lot more last year and they got a deal in place for Brian Burns, we were already going to see more names kind of drop because, especially if Evero was staying, because he was going to need guys who fit his system. And I do think that part of, first off, the defense was good and it was solid last year. But again, those are those splash plays that you mentioned that we didn't see it last year. We didn't see strip sacks a lot. We didn't see a lot of takeaways. We didn't see those guys really hold up in the red zone. I think a lot of that probably came from familiarity with the actual defense. And let's remember, the defense was chronically injured last year as well.
Yeah,
so if we get a full year of Shaq Thompson next to Josie Jewell with Wanham and Calebon Chason, of course, some guys are going to miss some games for injury, but let's say most of those guys play most of those snaps of the season. Like, a lot of those things you could see just being fixed just off of that, just guys being available. Another thing I thought was an issue was stopping the run. Ashawn Robinson, that's what he's known for. And you have him and Derek Brown next to each other. That could also help out, which could also help out the guys in the back end as well. If you're stopping the run and then, and they're the team that can't go to that. And so then their play action isn't as effective when they're passing. Things kind of end up working out. So I'm looking at what the defense could possibly do to take a step up in some of those other areas, just simply because there's another year and there's more players who are familiar with and who have had success in this system. We were going to see the turnover anyway because of just what it is. So, but the real test is going to be on offense. And I really do think that the moves that they've made has set up the draft in a perfect way. Those 2 second-round picks, you need a wide receiver, you need a center. It's like, forget best available. I think that's what you look at for the future. For sure, that's what you look at for the future.
Oh, absolutely. And by all reports, there's the very deep wide receiver class. So you can get a very good wide receiver early in the second. There might even be guys that slip down into the early third round pick that you have. You might even have that as well.
Yeah.
A name that I would like to see the Carolina Panthers go after, Graham Barton from Duke. Who can play center, he can play guard. He's actually even played tackle as well, but he might be able to plug and play. Even as a starting center, he might be able to move on from Austin Corbett, whether via trade or whatever it is that you decide to do. So there's a lot of different options. There's still a lot of holes still that need to be filled. Like you said, you still need another wide receiver, at least one. You still need 2 cornerbacks at least, because you can't trust JC Horn's health. And obviously you traded away Diontae Jackson. I know you signed Dane Jackson, but to me, you still need 2.
And you got Troy Hill. So, I mean, for sure, at least one.
Troy plays that nickel slot, but again, after that, it's just it's bare bones. Still need a couple, my opinion.
Let me go back on something I said earlier. Because yes, I'm fine with the running backs. I would like, and just to go back to one of the criticisms I had earlier this year, I would like a bigger back. So if you can find that either in free agency or in the draft, everybody has that same profile that we talked about before. They're between 5'11" and 6'1", 205 to 215. Like, get me somebody who's like 230 plus. Just a bruiser, somebody that could pick up that extra yard, because we also saw one of the downsides to having Bryce is he's not going to be able to sneak the ball very well, right? Like, can we bring in Andy Dalton every single time we need to get 1 yard? I don't think that's going to be the best use of our talent. So that's another thing I would say, and that's another hole on offense. And then, what's going to happen at tight end? I have questions. I really have questions at tight end. The wide receiver part looks like it's taking care of itself, but I have some questions. So absolutely, there are some gaping holes here on this offense. However, I can honestly say I feel better about where the Carolina Panthers are right now than what I did 2 weeks ago. Just simply with what Dan Morgan has been doing. I think he's done a good job of what he's had available to him.
Yeah. You know what? You got the task of fixing a mess that he also helped create, but he's got a task of fixing a mess. But you know what? It's clearly
didn't have the final say, though. He helped to create, but didn't have the final say.
The message has been clear. we're getting our own guys in. Dan Morgan, Dave Canales, we're getting our own guys in. Simple as that. We're getting our guys. Everyone else, if you're not going to fit our mold, shipping you out. Like Hayden Hurst, they literally get zero return on they get $50,000 in salary cap relief for cutting Hayden Hurst this year.
Can you believe he said he's ready to go to a team that actually believes in him? Like, bro, the Carolina Panthers believed in you. You did nothing.
Yeah.
Like you were set up to be the tight end for that team. Like you came in on a team that had Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas, and like you came in as being the guy and you did nothing. Like, what are you talking about? A team that actually believes in you? Like they believed in you. You did nothing.
He did nothing.
Sorry.
But yes, it's things like that. Like they're like Von Bell was the signing of the previous administration. Gone. You know, Brian Burns was drafted by Marty Herney when Robert Farrell was the head coach.
Yeah.
And he was with the team for 5 years. Simple as that. But it's the message isn't clear. We're getting our own guys in. We'll see what else they're going to do come draft time. We're going to see what else they're going to do. There's still potential free agents out there. I know Mike Williams, Michael Gallup are also wide receivers that are visiting the Panthers this week. We'll see if one gets signed.
If you could sign one of those two, which one would you rather sign? Mike Williams or Michael Gallup?
I know some people say, well, Bryce has never had a jump ball guy. That's really not his go with like Mike Williams. I was like, to me, Mike Williams, but Mike Williams also never stays healthy. That's kind of my thing.
I was going to say Michael Gallup just for that reason, because especially if you feel like you have a shot at a big body guy in a draft, you can kind of draft that guy.
I also, here's what actually my thing. We'll close on this. There's a likelihood in my mind if the Panthers can sign Williams and maybe Gallup to the right deal, because like, you know, the market doesn't allow them to sign with other teams based off where they sit right now. Well, you get like week 7 of the regular season, Panthers are like what 1-6, 2-5, might be out of it a little bit, and there's a team that just lost their top wide receiver for the season because of an injury, and they need to trade for somebody for the for a playoff run. Panthers are like 4th round pick, Mike Williams, 4th round pick, Michael Gallup, 3rd, whatever it is, you can flip that for future asset. I wonder if they might try and pull something like that. That could be a possibility, but I don't know if they'll do that.
It'll be interesting to see. And if it ends up being Diontae Johnson with Michael Gallup, let's say Xavier Legette and Adam Thielen, boy, that wide receiver core looks a lot better than what it did last year. And if Dave Canales is who he says he is, those guys should be getting open for Bryce Young to toss to him, and Bryce Young should be having time.
And you hope Mingo takes a step up. Simple as that. Second year.
Is he going to get on the field with those other 4 people, though? That's what I'm thinking.
Good question.
Is he going to get on the field?
Good question.
Hey, we have an opening at tight end. Do you want to gain some weight?
Yeah. So we might have another failed 2nd round pick as a wide receiver. Go figure. On our
carry
hands.
the ball.
Terrace Marshall Jr., ladies and gentlemen. That's going to wrap things up for this episode of Panthers Playbook. Again, make sure you subscribe, hit the likes as well. But again, leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. We'll have episodes for you all throughout the offseason. Obviously, there's a draft coming up, which is about 5 weeks away. Tracy, I think we're by the time we're recording this, I think it's 37 days away. So in 38 days, the Carolina Panthers will be drafting from now because they don't have the damn 1st round pick. That's what it is. Chris, be good, sir. I'll see you.